EU27 leaders are embroiled in a frantic argument over the end date of Theresa May's potential Brexit delay, which the Prime Minister requested earlier in the date. The Prime Minister had hoped to suspend Britain's EU divorce until June 30th. But so-called draft European Council conclusions revealed Brussels was preparing to crack down and cut the country's membership off sooner. According to the document, Brussels wanted Britain to leave the EU by May 22 in order to avoid disrupting the European Parliament elections days later. According to one Brussels source familiar with the negotiations, EU leaders are wrangling over a number of alternative dates in a drafting session. After spending 90 minutes with Mrs. May, they broke off into a smaller group in order to confirm their position. But leaders started pitching new dates and proposing new conditions for granting the Prime Minister her Brexit delay. France, Belgium and Luxembourg proposed allowing Britain to remain an EU member until May 7 without any conditions. EU27 unity shatters as leaders hammer out Brexit delay for Theresa May. Image Getty. Ireland is suggesting scrapping the May 22 date altogether after Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar on Wednesday urged his European colleagues to cut Britain some slack. Germany and the Netherlands don't want the extension to be limited in time, according to one EU diplomat. But then, another possibility floated amongst leaders was to revive the May 22 date, but if before April 11 the UK should notify Brussels of its intention to hold EU elections, then a longer extension can be re-evaluated amongst leaders, the source added. The EU27 leaders took a short break before continuing with a working dinner, from which the Prime Minister was uninvited. They dined on duck à l'orange while continuing their negotiations over the Brexit delay. The latest murmurings from the Brussels summit is that EU27 leaders seem to be focusing on a flexible approach to May's Article 50 extension request. The bloc is expected to respond with a suggestion of two different Brexit dates, depending on whether Theresa May can finally get her Brexit deal through Parliament in a third meaningful vote next week. If the withdrawal agreement passes, the UK will leave on May 22 with a deal in place. However, if it fails, Theresa May has until April 11 to notify the EU of whether it will participate in EU elections and request a long extension or leave the EU without a deal. Mrs. May spent 90 minutes with her European counterparts before being ejected for the EU27 discussions. The Prime Minister was set to present no Plan B, was unconvincing and didn't say anything different to her previous addresses to the EU27, according to a number of accounts from the meeting.